Hello, so today we're going to finally talk about the end of JoJo's Part 6. I already did a one video on the first half of Part 6. This is the second half. So the first video was me giving first impressions, talking about some of my favorite characters and favorite scenes. Now we're going to talk about the end, as well as some episodes leading up to the end. I'm mostly going to hit highlight episodes and a couple of things that are interesting to me, and then just focus on the conclusion, because I have so many thoughts about Pucci, which I said his name wrong last time. I stand by that Pucci isn't much better than Pookie, as well as on how everything concluded and what in the world it all means, because I don't actually fully know. So, Part 6, I loved. Once again, Araki just continues to create some of the most interesting ideas, and he very rarely takes cop-out answers. Now, that not always, and in previous seasons, always my least favorite stand battles were the ones where it was just like, and then there was a convenience, and then okay, now let's move on, it's over now. But usually, characters really have to get creative and think through things in a way that balances through really difficult challenges and the absurd that also is, it's clever, but it's also like, but how did you even come up with this as an option? A great example is the opening episodes for this section of the story, which is the plane crash, where, well, it's falling down the hole into the memory of a plane that is destined to crash. It has been determined to be so. Time has already decided it. Fate has already decided it, and there is no fighting this. And so they're stuck. There's no way out of this plane. All the passengers have already been killed. There's already a face bursting out of this woman's stomach because the passenger flew through her spine when the plane first crashed. It's so haunting. It's such a terrifying concept. I love this idea of being trapped in a memory and there's no way out of what has already been determined to happen, so you're just stuck here. But there was a way out. There is a seat that will survive. But our villain throws children into this vortex, into this timey-wimey nonsense, so that now they're occupying the seat, and so your only choice is, do you survive by kicking one of the children out of the seat and killing them, or do you die? And here I am, thinking through the situation, going, okay, Jolene dies here. There is no way out of this. Jolene can't just kick the although I will say, who was it? Was it Hermes? I'm filming this video like 2 weeks after I actually concluded watching the series, because the end of the year nonsense, I got caught up in all of that. Anyway, was it Hermes, or however you say her name? She was like, move kids. She's just like, those kids are dying, I don't care. It's so funny. But Jolene, our hero, she can't do that. So I'm like, JoJo's die sometimes. I guess this is where Jolene dies. I don't see a way out of this. We have to save the children. And because it's JoJo's, it forces me to consider this impossible scenario, and what would I do, and what do I think the characters should do, and is there a way out of this? And then it uses the logic of JoJo's and the logic of the stands to finish this whole thing out by, I think it was, I hid inside the body of one of the people that I know survives, and Jolene hid inside my body too because she can turn herself into string. Like the most JoJo's answer that is both chaotic and still fits within the formula of the series, but also challenges me to think through and a seemingly impossible situation. And I don't know, I just really like it. Anyway, what I really was not expecting when we were introduced to Weather, who I love, and we see that he doesn't have his memories, so he goes by the name of his stand. I love Weather and wanted to continue to see his character grow, but I didn't expect that the reason he doesn't have his memories is because they've been stolen from him. I feel dumb for not considering that, but when we got his memories back and he immediately turns violent and he turns angry and his whole personality shifts because his memories have been returned to him, it was a gut punch that I was not expecting, but I had no idea how much I was not expecting the emotional pain that Araki was about to take me on as I experience Wes's backstory. Now, the whole nonsense with the rainbows, and if you look at the rainbow, then you think you're a snail, and then you turn into a snail, and all the chaos that comes with that, I'm just gonna breeze past all of that because it was very Junji Ito feeling, because there are actual snails that happen, I think in multiple Junji Ito stories, but definitely in Uzumaki. but it was also just, it's a little bit too much for me. So I'm just going to breeze right past all of that, and we're just going to talk about the backstory. First of all, the tragedy that one mother went through and then put another mother through when one of her twins died, and then she stole away another mother's twin. And so because of that, Wes and Pucci were separated at birth, lived separate lives, and then unfortunately that meant that Wes ended up in this relationship with his unknowingly sister. Pucci, through confession, learns what happened and tries to break it up, and in doing so accidentally sends the PI to Wes, which causes this horrible hate crime to unfold. To Wes, he just fell in love and was living a happy life. To this character and his clan buddies, being half black and loving a white woman is enough to be hanged, which causes his love, tormented over what just happened, to fling herself off a cliff. But both Pucci and Weather are forced to survive and live with the memories. Weather to live with the memories of everything that has just happened to him and of losing the person that he thought he was going to spend his life with, and Pucci to live with the reality that it was his decisions, his choices that caused this terrible fate to happen. Now, Weather ended up having his memories stolen, so he didn't actually have to live with them for a large stretch of time because, Pucci didn't want to be killed. But for Pucci, it makes total sense to me how this would be his origin story. After having been faced with this seemingly impossible situation, needing to keep his priestly vows, but also wanting to intervene in this terrible thing that he couldn't tell anyone about, but he wanted to do what he could to try to help, not knowing that his actions would lead to this horrible, horrible fate. And then, right before this, he was introduced to this person who healed his foot, who gave him an arrow with incredible power, who was trying to create a heaven where people would have some sort of awareness and possibly even control over their fate, or at least control over their ability to cope with fate because they could see it in advance. It makes total sense to me that Pucci at this point of desperation and of guilt, and of feeling like fate had destroyed his life, knowing that there was someone with this incredible power at their fingertips and this plan that could allow him to allow people, the world, everyone, to be able to reckon with their fate. It's such a great villain origin story because it's tragic, it's compelling, it's horrible, it's reminiscent of real life, and it's something that would very rationally drive him to the fate, to the future that he seeks. And in his mind, it's a mercy. I mean, he did all of this. He made the decisions he made as a mercy to the people in his life, and it only caused more pain. And so in his mind, giving people the ability to know their future in advance, to know their fate in advance, and be able to be prepared for it and reckon with it in advance is a mercy in his eyes. This leads us to the Weather and Pucci fight, which broke me. Not only was it an incredible fight, with Weather showing so much strength, having his legs severed and then standing on his bleeding stumps while still thinking through this extreme strategy to save his friends and essentially the world. But his death broke my heart, having the weather change first as the initial signal to let us know what had happened. And all of this directly on the heels of realizing what he had lived through before his memories were stolen. It near killed me watching the end of this fight, not only because Weather is a character that I'm really attached to, and so, his death is going to affect me no matter what, but also just the tragedy of knowing that he had been through so much and then didn't have his memories, didn't have the thing that made him who he was, and lived through so much time in confusion and in not actually knowing himself, only to then at the very end be given back those memories and like a truck to have all of that pain and suffering just foisted back on him, only to then not be able to accomplish what he wanted to accomplish, which admittedly is killing your brother, but to be killed in the midst of all of that anger and all of that pain being brought back to you. It's such a tragedy. A lot happened leading up to the final bit. Something that I'll note is Jotaro's re-entrance back into the story when he saved his daughter was just so good. Also, the battle leading up to the world ending was so good. I mean, the battles in JoJo's are always excellent, but having the knives attack them once again, it's Dio returning in a sense. The attacks that got Jotaro in part 3 are now after his daughter in part 6, and losing near everyone except for Jolene and Emporio, and even Jolene sacrifices herself so that Emporio can go free on a friggin' dolphin of all things. We lost so many people in this section and it killed me, but it was so good. JoJo's handles putting these characters in situations where they cannot always come out on the other end. He handles these death scenes, these sacrifices so well, and I was not even that attached to Emporio. And the fact that he was the only one that survived for a while there, it ripped me apart. First of all, Pucci's evolution. He became so powerful, being so fast that even Zaworldo didn't actually work on him to the extent that it should be able to, that he could still see things coming. This should pause time and should give Jotaro the perfect advantage in every situation. But the fated attack that's coming his way, Pucci's ability allows him to see fate coming, to see what's coming to him even when time is paused, which I think just ties into everything that we've been talking about up to this point. But also his speed of light in every situation, his levitating, flashing, crazy, like he was so over the top incredible in these final sections. He was so powerful. But also, I don't know if Araki realizes, I assume he does, he's very well researched, how perfect his parallels of Pucci's version of heaven really were, or Dio/Pucci's version of heaven. But biblically, in the second coming of Jesus, there will be a new heaven and a new earth, and the dead will rise, and we will live on the new earth when the earth is made perfect. So the fact that Dio and Pucci's idea of heaven is a new earth, but one where people can live from their perspective in a better way, where they're able to see fate coming. And the fact that Pucci decided in his new earth to not let the dead rise, but actually to leave the dead dead, and only the living get to come into this new earth. But then that choice ended up causing a distorted reality of the place that those people should have held. To me, that's a really cool choice, and I think it's really easy to miss out on the nuances of that. But also, this new earth that Pucci ends up creating is this distorted thing, and it's not actually what's best for people. It's not what's good. And the fact that after Emporio does defeat Pucci, what we get is a new earth with Pucci removed, without his influence on it. And then what we actually get is the real version of heaven, of the new earth, in a better way, in a way where people are able to live in a life where they're still together, but it's happier. Jolene is no longer a Jojo, and so she doesn't have that Jojo curse or pull or whatever you would call that. She's able to live happily with Anastasia, and I can't say it. Anasui? and all the crew is together, and even Jotaro is supposedly there somewhere doing something. But not only that, Pucci, I think too, has that really poetic ending that Araki oftentimes gives his greatest villains. This poetic justice, like what Kira got, being dragged into hell by the hands. Shucks, I can't remember, was it Cars? That's not the right name. The one villain that has to continue to be killed over and over again, but never actually is fully dead, just has to keep reliving different death sequences over and over again, the one that tried to evade death. I think that Pucci's ending is just as poetic. Someone who wanted so badly to be able to see the future and not be beholden to, still be beholden to fate, and that fate was still going to happen. But I want to be able to see fate coming so that I and the world can be prepared and can process it in advance. I want to create a new world. I'm going to leave certain people out of that new world, but I want to create a new world in a way that suits me better, that I can just know what's coming. And what happened is that he couldn't see the future. So Emporio used that weakness against him to get him to create a world without him in it. So his poetic fate was that a new world, a better world where everyone else is living out a better life, was created, and he was exempt. He was left out of it. Heaven was created. This new earth was created, and he didn't get to experience it. In part 5, we watch characters fight fate, and fate refused to be moved. In part 6, Pucci tried to control fate and ended up getting left out of it. Fate continues to self-correct when people try to mess with it. And I really like the way it played out this time. Also, in a story where memories, in this part where memories were so important and were a big part of what made a person who they were, it's what shaped them, it's what trapped them or freed them. Now we have all these characters living out in this new world, on this new earth, living out a new life, being totally unaware that the earth has been made new, and that they are completely unaware of everything that's transpired leading up to this, except for Emporio, who keeps his memories and now lives on knowing everything that he's just suffered and lived through and lost. And he just has to assimilate. Like, I don't know how he can do that. Like, that's a lot of trauma for this kid to live with. But it's also a very fitting ending that someone is still left to remember. Anyway, I don't know what all this means at the end. We were talking about it at the end of the stream. Jay and I were talking about it at the end of the stream about does it mean that, the whole earth was made new. So that means that all of the parts were made new as well, right? Like, all of parts 1 through 6 have passed away. And now this is a new world. Like, it's not just part 6 that has started anew and is different now. It's everything, right? So what does that mean about part 7? Like, what am I to expect? I don't know. Anyway, I am going to be reading part 7. Volume 1 just dropped officially, I'm pretty sure, so I'm very excited about that. But I loved part 6. I love this series. If you watch my top 10 manga video, then you know that Jojo's is very high on my list of my favorite series. So I'm bring on part 7. Please do chat with me more in the comments. Like I said, I filmed this video like 2 weeks after actually finishing the series. I planned on filming it a lot sooner and it just didn't work out. So if I forgot some stuff or I messed something up, you can correct me in the comments, or if I just misunderstood something, because the ending of this part there was a lot going on. I know there were certain episodes that I just kind of breezed past, but I just really wanted to focus on the conclusion because I loved it. I'm curious to hear what you think, so please do chat with me more in the comments, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.